Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This opposition motion feels like an attempt by the opposition to grab some headlines in the run-up to the budget on the 3rd of March. Chuck in a raft of policy proposals to second-guess the Chancellor. If you guess right, you can claim the credit. If you guess wrong, you can claim moral outrage. But what is interesting is not so much what's in this motion, but what isn't in it. Labour has been reduced to calling for an extension of existing schemes by a few months or for widening access to the self-employment scheme, although I note that they don't explain how you can do that without exposing the Treasury and the taxpayer to massive fraud. But what they have been unable to do is to come up with any significant critique of the government's support for business and employment in response to this pandemic. Why is it that Labour's attack has been reduced to this carping around the edges? It's because the government's support for businesses and employment has been truly massive. It has used the hard-won financial credibility of the whole of the United Kingdom, painfully recovered after Labour's last spendthrift government, and used it to inject over £280 billion of financial support right across our economy. They've been supporting jobs through the furlough scheme, £46 billion, through the self-employment scheme, £5.4 billion, the Kickstarter scheme, £2 billion, supporting businesses through the Business Bounce Back Loan Scheme, over £45 billion, Sybil's, £21 billion, Large Company Loan Scheme, £5 billion, business rates relief, grants to companies that have been forced to close at over £1 billion every month, and the list could go on. There is barely a company in the whole of the United Kingdom that has not benefited in some way by the government's support. And as a former businessman myself, I draw attention to my register of interests. The government has succeeded in keeping businesses afloat through the pandemic so that they're in a position to bounce back as the lockdown eases. These are the businesses that will create the employment, generate the growth, and then the tax revenues to pay back the enormous investment that the government has made. And today's employment figures show that businesses have already started to hire again, with employment having risen in each of the last 2 months and redundancy notices falling, with huge investment in the productivity, enhancing infrastructure of the whole United Kingdom that is still to come, and the implementation of the Prime Minister's 10 points plan for a green recovery. There are, Madam Deputy Speaker, huge grounds for optimism as we come out of lockdown, and I commend the government for its Herculean efforts.